But thank you so much for being here. I am trying to learn a little bit more about what future lab means, especially in the medical field that we all work in.
Mhm.
But before we get started, do you mind just introducing yourself, please?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Mark. My background is in biophysics and in lab automation. So I've worked for quite a long time in biotech and in pharma, both small and large companies. Over that time, I've seen lots of different stuff in the lab. I've seen how the technology has really improved and what's possible now that wasn't possible about 20 years ago when I first started working in the lab. It's been very exciting. There's lots of ways that things can be improved now. And, I'm very excited to be part of that whole transformation, being part of Arcondis for the past 3 years.
What
Yeah.
exactly is future lab? Just in a couple sentences.
In reality, Future Lab is all about implementing the new technologies that are available now to improve the way people do their work in the lab, which has really been very slow to change over the last 30 years or so. As an example, people really love to pipette. I'm not sure that
God.
they love it, right? But they do it a lot, and there are really ways to arrange lab work where they don't need to do that anymore, right? It's really all about digitalizing and making both the lab workflows more automated and much easier for the scientists, as well as the whole data generation and data output.
Right. What are
Good.
three things that I should consider?
First, very important to put in the basic platforms to do everything properly. You need a good ELN, maybe a good LIMS or sample management system, and you need to have hardware that can be connected and work together, right?
Okay.
So very important to set up the basics to really enable the more complex things to happen. Interestingly enough, for lab work, the basic systems built on kind of modern architectures are very different than how they were even 10 years ago. So the capabilities that they enable are much wider and, let's say, much more comprehensive now. The problem is
Interesting.
that people have not taken the time to configure these systems properly, right? When they're putting them into their labs. And that really slows them down and keeps them from getting all the benefits that they could. And that's what we hope to help our customers with.
What are the recurring problems that you see in
Mhm.
Future Lab, and what are some ways that you or Condis can help?
Of course, let's say we have problems in three areas, right? So this is all going back to all the theories of change management. So we have problems that are technical, problems with the process, and of course, challenges with getting people accustomed to the new ways of working. The technical challenges are probably the easiest to solve because it's really all about putting in those platforms, right? So it's about investing, say, the money to get the right tools for the job. The tools are there. In principle, they could be made to work.
Cool.
Then we get to the process. Here, the problem is that the lab processes that people work with are not optimized, right? So we go back to people pipetting all day long. That can be changed. There could be better planning of experiments, right? There could be better workflows for actually performing the experiment and then for analyzing the data and getting it out. Optimizing the process and translating it into those platforms, that is something that's not given enough emphasis, I think, by a lot
Okay.
of people hoping to do these transformations. And of course, finally, the people factor, really important, right? Because people are the most important part of, let's say, the lab ecosystem, right? It's the people doing the work.
Of
And their
course.
value is really not in them, again, pipetting, but in their brains, right? In them understanding what they need from the experiment and what is coming out so they can interpret it, right? With the new ways of working, right, that we have with the new platforms, the new processes, if people don't understand, right, if the lab workers aren't clear about what capabilities they now have,
Hmm.
they're going to be completely lost, right?
Yeah.
Because
Or
they're
the
not.
technology is going to be a waste.
Exactly, exactly. And so that is another really very much overlooked area, right? Is the
Right.
organizational change management, right?
Right.
Getting
Right.
people along, bringing them along uh, through the transformation journey. At Arcondis, this is something that we really focus on, and I've seen, let's say, the importance in many projects that I've worked on that were both successful when OCM was emphasized, and those that were not successful. There was no training, no help to get people onboarded to the new tools and the new ways of working.
How does Future Lab
Mhm.
help science become more sustainable?
What's interesting is that it's almost by default, right? By improving the uh, operations in the lab, that the work will become more sustainable. It's an important point to focus on, but the idea really is that it doesn't have to be the driver, the central driver. It comes out really as a side effect of the improvements. How that works, I can give you a really great example. So one of the ways that working towards the lab of the future, one of the big benefits is to reduce the number of repeated experiments, because
Mm,
that's actually a huge problem. So I've seen statistics of something like between 50 and 70% of experiments are repeated throughout, let's say, the drug development life cycle, right?
yeah.
So if you can cut down the number of repeated experiments, already you're using less materials by amount, fewer chemicals, less energy, right? You're spending less time doing all of this lab work. Literally, if you can cut it in half, now you've just saved, half the resources that you would have used for your drug
Yeah.
development.
Yeah. Um, Once again, I'm new to this area. What are
Mhm,
some things that I should explore, learn
mhm.
about?
Now, there are really great possibilities in connecting different systems together, right? So before, it used to be where a person would do their experiment on one instrument, then they would take their data, move it to
Yeah.
a different instrument, and do all of this kind of stuff, and be involved literally in every part of the experiment. Now there's the possibility, first of all, to have the systems talk to each other by
Cool.
themselves, right? So entire workflows can be automated now, right? And not just for like high throughput screening where it's just a specialized workflow that runs all the time in one way. You could have a lot more general workflow automation and systems uh, connecting, let's say, in a more modular way together to accomplish really complex tasks in the lab.
Interesting.
So that's, I would say, the way to think about it, right? So very important to think about systems working together to accomplish long workflows. Uh, Another big area is, of course, AI, right? We can't ignore that. So that's coming up in the future. But again, the idea here is being able to get your data in a reasonable way from all of these different systems, right? Which is important for them to be connected. That feeds the AI, right? And then the AI
Ah,
can give you
yeah.
a lot of insights, right? So um, getting the lab ready for um, let's say this transformation in how things will be done,
Yeah.
right? Thanks to kind of artificial intelligence and a bit more guidance. Oh, okay, this stuff needs to be measured still for this medicine. Then it's clear what experiment needs to be planned, right? It's clear how that data will be used,
Hmm.
right? That's what I see as being a big area in the future.
I mean,
So
that's
lots to look
amazing.
forward to.
Well, I cannot wait to see what's coming up. And thank you so much for your
Fantastic.
time.
It's my pleasure, Gabby. Anytime.